I don't know what they all are, but I know someone who does. Alex Wilkes joins us. She's the executive director for America Rising PAC, and here to talk about kind of the big picture in the U.S. Election map coming up this Tuesday. Alex, thanks for being on.
Thanks so much for having me.
First of all, Alex, is what the polling, if there's internal polling or your polling or anything, are we seriously like 50-50 losing the House this time around in Congress?
I think the House is definitely up for grabs right now.
Wow.
But we're in a better position as Republicans than we were even just a couple of months ago, because after the Kavanaugh hearings, of course, Republican enthusiasm really ramped up. And we've seen, whether it's issues like the caravan or just sort of general Democratic incivility with comments like Eric Holder's, we're going to kick Republicans, Hillary Clinton, and we're going to, be civil after we win. It's sort of keeping the momentum going. And I think that that's what's causing these polls to tighten.
Okay.
So you could look at this two different ways. You could look at the generic ballot, where Democrats have been ahead and they've sort of maintained that lead, although it is shrinking. But then if you dig down into some of these battleground districts, into these key places where the Democrats need to pick up 23 seats in order to take back the House, you see that these polls are running neck and neck or within the margin of error. And so I think that there's a lot in flux, and there's a lot up in the air in terms of what's going to happen in a week.
Generic polling, that always troubles me. The question is, are you going to vote, Democrat or Republican this time around? And Democrats seem to always win that. But honestly, I mean, politics are all local, and so yeah, you might. I mean, what Congress has like an 8% approval rating. Well, if that's how people feel about Congress, then nobody would win. So
People
obviously
like
somebody's
their own
voting.
Congressman
Yeah,
better than they do Congress itself.
exactly. Even if your congressman happens to be a Democrat, right?
Right.
And you're a Republican, so or vice versa, or if they're a Republican and you're a Democrat. So it's candidate specific. Any areas of the country that you're particularly paying attention to for Congress, or is it all real?
I think that where we're really seeing the races tighten up and be a source of focus for both Republicans and Democrats are these districts where you have a large suburban vote. So we're going to be looking at suburban women, looking at people who are fairly well educated, probably have upper middle class income, who are potentially skeptical about where the direction of the country, even though of course the economy is doing
they're benefiting
well,
right? They're winning.
They're benefiting from the strong economy. So I think that plus the fact that the president's job approval numbers are they're as high as they've been right now. Those are not ingredients for the blue wave that the media and the Democrats keep hyping. In fact, the Democrats have really started to walk back talk of a blue wave. Tom Perez, the DNC chair, won't even say the words blue wave anymore if you press him on it.
Wow.
So, but I think that the Democrats initially started off with really high hopes. They said, we're going to take a huge chunk of the House. We're going to take 60, 70 seats. And so they started naturally focusing in areas where we have a Republican congressman, but Hillary Clinton won the district in 2016. I think what happened, though, is that they got a little bit greedy and they started to expand out elsewhere. Kind of reminds me of the closing days of the Hillary Clinton campaign where, she didn't bother to go to Wisconsin, but she was out playing around in Arizona. And so like a good example of that was in Arkansas 2nd District where, they've dumped in a bunch of money on ads for this guy, Clark Tucker, but he's down by 12 points in the latest poll. So they really haven't been able to expand out as much as they've wanted to. And now, now that it's coming down to the wire, there are really just a few places in the country, mainly these suburban areas where, the vote is going to matter.
We've got two tight ones in Minneapolis.
Yes,
Eric Paulson and Jason Lewis, two incumbents. And Jason Lewis has never won re-election. So it's his, first term, looking for a second term. So, yeah, I'm sure all eyes on those two districts. Those have got to be as close as any in the country.
Yep, and in fact, in Minnesota 8, that's a place where we've seen the Democrats lose an opportunity to win back that seat. They're actually pulling out of that district. So, they're again, that's an example of where, they really tried to expand their map and it didn't quite work out for them.
The Democrats are pulling out of the 8th, huh?
They did last week.
That's what I had heard that, but I wasn't sure. Very interesting. So Pete Stauber is our guy, and we hope that he wins. President Trump has come to see him once or twice. I think Mike Pence has been up there once or twice. Very exciting. Okay, Alex, let's segue into the Senate. Then you can allay some of our fears, I think. Why is it, and what states particularly are we talking about that we've been somewhat comfortable that Republicans are in good shape and or may increase their majority in the U.S. Senate?
Yeah, so I think that the Kavanaugh hearings really solidified our chances of keeping the Senate, and in fact is allowing us to expand outward. A place where Democrats had basically thought was a shoo-in was Nevada, for example, with Jackie Rosen challenging Dean Heller. And the reason why they thought that is because Hillary Clinton won Nevada in 2016. So that was going to be their one of their first pickup opportunities. And they, Dean Heller is holding on strong. And so, that's a place where Democrats had expected to pick up. It's not looking as likely now. But the Democrats have always had a hard road this election cycle. They were defending 10 seats in states that the president won in 2016. 5 of those states he won by double digits. For people like Claire, for people like Heidi Heitkamp, that Kavanaugh vote, I think, might prove to be the death knell in their campaign, as voters certainly, in those states wanted to see Judge Kavanaugh confirmed and to see their, not just their own senators' opposition to it, but the party's just disgraceful actions towards Judge Kavanaugh, his family, and the process in general. I think that's really going to weigh heavy on these candidates.
Other pickup states that you're looking at?
Pickup states that we're looking at, a place like Florida. Rick Scott was a strong recruit right out of the gate. Has a ton of money.
Yep.
He's running right neck and neck with Bill Nelson. So we're looking for a potential pickup there. The AG in West Virginia, Patrick Morrissey, is closing in on Joe Manchin.
Wow.
And there might be a surprise or two in a place like New Jersey, where Bob Hugin is running against the notoriously corrupt Bob Menendez. And the people in New Jersey might be so sick of Bob Menendez and his shenanigans that they might actually send a Republican to the U.S. Senate for the first time in many decades.
Amen. I saw that. I heard a weird statistic, Alex, on this, where somebody said that a third of people in New Jersey were unaware that Menendez had been under indictment so often. How does the rest of the country know all about this? But there's a third of people in New Jersey who didn't know this.
Yeah, I mean,
what?
But,
that'll change.
But I think that the corruption trial in New Jersey really took a toll on Menendez. His numbers are terrible in New Jersey, and I think importantly, Chuck Schumer's Senate Majority PAC has had to come to the rescue by dumping $6 million into this race.
Wow.
That must really hurt if you're a Democratic committee and you're dumping $6 million into New Jersey in an election cycle where you were supposed to be riding this blue wave. I mean, that's money that could have been used to go help Claire McCaskill. It could have been used to go help Heidi Heitkamp. Instead, it's being used in the Garden State. I don't think that's where Chuck Schumer wanted to see that money go. And so, that's what's a good thing about running a strong recruit in an otherwise more partisan state, is that it, the right candidate can give some of these Democrats are running for their money, and quite literally can end up costing the Democrats a seat or even just precious resources at the end of the day.
Texas and Arizona.
Texas, this has been a state that Democrats have long claimed is sort of ripe for the picking. I don't think it's quite there yet, although I would caution that the demographics of Texas are changing, and it's places where where Republicans need to do better. That's with younger voters, it's with women, and that's certainly true of the growth that we're seeing in Texas and the changing demography there. But I think that Ted Cruz will ultimately hold on, and I think importantly, Beto O'Rourke, he is inspiring a lot of these grassroots donations because he's definitely a dynamic candidate.
Yeah.
But he's drawing in a lot of money from grassroots supporters from around the country. And a lot of Democrats nationally are privately grumbling. They're saying, why are all these people giving to Beto O'Rourke and not to Claire McCaskill or not to Bill Nelson? That's where we need the money.
Right.
So I think ultimately Ted Cruz is going to hang on. And I think that Beto's significant war chest that he's building will really come at the expense of some of these other Democrats who needed it more.
Interesting analysis. I hadn't thought about that. And then Jeff Flake, John McCain's replacement, both in Arizona. What are we expecting there?
This is another interesting, race where we have Martha McSally, who of course went through a bruising primary to face Kirsten Sinema, who didn't have as much resistance. And so, of course, our candidate is always going to come out of the primary a little bruised up, compared to the Democrats in that situation. But Martha McSally, she's a fighter. She's someone who was fighting for our country, flying planes, while Kirsten Sinema, her Democratic opponent, was protesting the Iraq War in a pink tutu. It's a really strange video. And Kirsten Sinema has gone through great gymnastics to try to reinvent herself. She was really one of these, if you remember back to 2006, like she was one of these like Looney Tunes out there with the protests, and she was like, she even at some point said that it was okay for Americans to join the Taliban. Like she was out there. And now she's trying, 2018 Kirsten Sinema is really trying to present herself as this like middle of the road candidate who's going to, represent Arizona and work with the president. I think though that her path is going to catch up to haunt her, but that race is close. It's within the margin of error. So it'll really depend on turnout and, just any kind of late developments that occur in the race.
And now, is John Kyle, does he have to be elected this time around, or is he in for a couple more, filling in for John McCain?
So John Kyle, he eventually, I'm not...
If he runs or that seat, I mean, whether he's the candidate or not.
He's not going to run again for
it.
He was a placeholder only for it. So,
and that's not this year?
There's a chance that should Martha McSally lose in the general election this time around, that she could eventually be take over that Senate seat should she not win. But I think that there's a very good chance she could win based on the polls. But it's in so many of these races, it's anyone's guess.
Very insightful. Well, Alex, I talked to you all day. Alex Wilkes joining us from America Rising PAC. Before I let you go, what is America Rising PAC?
The America Rising PAC is the Republican Party's premier opposition research firm. We watch Democrats all day, so you don't have to.
Yeah, we appreciate that. I think we've talked to Ms. Kukowski a few times here in Minnesota.
Oh, great. Okay, yeah.
So I knew I recognized that title. So, well, you guys, apparently doing good work. Let's see if a week from today, I guess it'll be a week from tomorrow, if we're all, as excited as we're all hoping, or if it's going to look like the Hillary Clinton presidential headquarters from 2016.
Yeah, we shall see.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your analysis. Right. Appreciate it, Alex.
Thank you.
Alex Wilkes joining us from America Rising PAC on KNSI's Ox in the Afternoon, coming up at after the